This is the Retro Inc. podcast. Welcome back.
You are listening to the Retro Inc. podcast, a member of the Star Wars Commonwealth podcast network. Check out more from the Commonwealth at starwarscommonwealth.com and take your first steps into a larger world.
Welcome back to Retro Inc. podcast with myself, Adam, and my co-host,
Andy. Hello there.
Hello there. How are you doing, mate?
I'm okay, mate. Causing
Good.
mischief. Yeah.
You are indeed. And we've had some mischief on the recording side, technical difficulties, but we're back. And
if this does sound
this is
different this week, we will
Yeah.
try and rectify it for next week. But this is the best we can do this week. So
the best we can do for episode 23.
yeah.
Going great guns.
Yeah.
So, we have had the Infinity War drop via digital, and you watched it last night. I watched it this morning. Still as thrilling as it was the first time I saw it, quite frankly.
Mate, it gets better and better with every viewing, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic movie.
What I particularly really noticed was, via the special feature, the extra features, is just what a great job they did on face mapping Josh Brolin's face and the eyes, and you just tend to think now that all these kind of mapping is all CGI, but you look very closely and it's clearly his features and his movements and character that really is quite phenomenal. And I really did feel quite a lot more of it for Thanos than I did on previous viewings. That he can absolutely justify what it is he's doing, why he's doing it. That the kind of falseness that I thought he felt for Gamora, didn't feel that this time at all. Actually, I could really feel the sort of sadness that at the end of the film when Mantis
is in his mind as well. I noticed it a lot. That his mourning, his sad, all these emotions that she's saying he's feeling. And yeah, he is torn apart by what he had to do. And even when Star-Lord says to him, she goes, "Tell me it's not true." And he doesn't say yes, it is or anything. He says, I had to do it. It's not like he's reveling in this decision that he made in spoilers, killing Gamora. But yeah, he's genuinely torn apart by this decision.
Well, any terrorist of any type has a very strong belief, and belief is a very strong word, isn't it? If you truly believe in what you're doing is just and correct and right, then nothing's going to stand in your way. And for a character like Thanos, who has destroyed many planets throughout the galaxy, and his belief is very strong in what he's doing is correct, then the loss of one, i.e. his daughter, compared to what he's foreseeing, and even more so now with these stones, is quite incredible. And there was a few more characters that I thought were remaining, and I realised they weren't. I completely forgot that Doctor Strange, has gone into the ether, the soul ether, actually, isn't it? Incredibly powerful film, actually. And without a doubt, the best of the three so far. Avengers was pretty astounding. The first time we'd seen these Marvel characters all come together. Age of Ultron.
I've got something to say about this when we get into our main topic of today.
Yeah, it has incredible moments, Age of Ultron, and I really love Ultron himself as a character. Actually, I think it's rather good, but it does have flaws. Ultron, the character, and it's a strange one, isn't it? Because you kind of want to really like him. But yeah, really fantastic movie, and it deserves many more viewings, doesn't it?
Yeah, very much.
If you have the time, that's for sure.
Mm.
In the old Marvel universe, some news on Daredevil will be returning for Series 3, which is coming this year, which is very exciting because it's a fantastic series. And it's going to be featuring much more of more of the Born Again story by Frank Miller. And I'm thrilled because, I'm a huge fan of Frank Miller's work, especially, his Daredevil run, which was astounding. Staying in that, we've got, news on the amount of money that Black Panther took. Now, that figure is just staggering, isn't it?
It is. Especially for a standalone. He is obviously a very well-known character in the Marvel universe, but I think for Joe Public, not so much. Obviously there's reasons for this that elevated it to the status that it has. But I am surprised, to be honest with you, that a film like this takes more than something like Thor Ragnarok. Not that it's a bad movie, because actually I was blown away, not even pleasantly surprised. I was blown away by how good Black Panther was. But yeah, it's staggering amount, isn't it?
So, what's the figure that you've got there? Because I know US figure was around 700 million and the worldwide box office was 1.5 billion.
Yeah.
Now where does that stand now next to Avatar?
Avatar, it's somewhere in the top 10 now, isn't it? Black Panther, I should imagine.
Well, it's got to be near the top 3, 4, hasn't it? Because previously it was Titanic, Avatar, and Infinity War.
Yeah,
so
well, that's the thing. Infinity War is getting up there now. I mean, let's have a quick Google eyes. Highest grossing films. Box Office Mojo. I'm going to go to our good friends at Box Office Mojo because they seem to be the best. So, number 1 is Avatar at 2.7 billion. Number 2 is Titanic at 2.1 billion. The Force Awakens is 2.068 billion.
Really? Wow.
And Avengers Infinity War is now sitting at 2.045. So I've got a feeling Infinity War is going to be up there soon. Black Panther is sitting in 9th place. Just behind Age of Ultron. So yeah, it's Age of Ultron in 8th, 7th is Fast and Furious 7, then the Avengers, then Jurassic World, and then the other 4.
Isn't it wonderful though that, in that top 10, you've got a film like Titanic, which is based on a real-time event, but the rest of it is all fantasy.
Yeah, but also, do you know that little
Science
film
fiction
that came out last year that everyone sort of lambasted and dragged through the mud in
What
a
you mean
certain
that,
fandom?
the last,
Yeah.
what's it called? The last, I forgot the name of that
Yeah.
movie, yeah.
Yeah,
That one.
yeah, it's sitting in 11th
With Ryan,
place.
wow.
Yeah, 11th place at 1.3 billion. So yeah, it must
Wow.
be terrible, mustn't it?
Well, the thing about The Last Jedi is that, it did extremely well on home release as well, didn't it? Now, does these figures, does it account for home release? Or is it purely on box office sales, do you think?
I think this is just box office. But, I think it is just box office. But this is what I was saying to you before about Avatar. Avatar was released 4 or 5 times.
Yes.
In different formats through over the course of two years, I think it was. You had IMAX 3D, and then they brought out the extended and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And that's why, and obviously the scope of the movie at the time that it came out, it was 2005, wasn't it? I think Avatar. This movie was there wasn't effects of this scale before. Obviously Cameron built the cameras, he built the studio from the ground up to be able to create this world, and it's fantastic. And I think it's very much, it's very unfortunate how this isn't bigger than it is. I mean, it's got the numbers for the box office, but it hasn't got the fan base that even say Titanic has. I mean, you mentioned the film Titanic, and everyone knows it. With Avatar, I think it was returning people going to the cinema. And you look at something like Infinity War, and it's at 2.045 billion. If they re-release this now, it would smash that.
It would.
It would smash that, because if they re-released Infinity War right now, I know full well I'd go again to see it on the big screen, especially if they brought out a director's cut, because it's something we do not get with Marvel films is director's cuts. We don't get extended versions because there's such an intricate, connected world they're creating. I think it's hard for them to bring out director's cut, because as soon as you put something else in, you're messing with the continuity of all the other movies.
Oh, yeah, exactly right. I mean, the thing with the DC films, you will get an extended cut. Green Lantern extended cut, BVS as well, obviously. And I think there was even probably Man of Steel had one.
But I think there's a saying about bums and elbows, and is something that DC really haven't got a clue what they're doing, and they do this, and I think it actually damages the fan base and damages their reputation, because, you know, I went to see BVS on opening night at the cinema, midnight showing. I was podcasting at the time, come out, did a podcast for it. I thought it was fantastic. Obviously, I was caught up in the buzz with it. Mm-hmm. But then I watched the Ultimate Edition. Is it the Ultimate?
Yes, Ultimate Cut.
Ultimate Cut. It's a much better movie. Oh, now, if they'd released that in the cinema, that film may have done a lot better.
I think it would have done 40% more.
Yeah, and they do themselves an injustice by doing. Do you like that?
Oh yeah. So you did that.
They do themselves an injustice.
Well, they just committed some kind of like Suicide Squad by doing that, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, that was Superman. But yeah, it's just one of those things. I think if Marvel could somehow re-release this, they would have the number one movie of all time on their hands, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, what's that? 700 million it's got to take. That sounds like a lot, which it is, but I think it's doable. 700 million is a very good movie these days. You release a film to 700 million, you've done well. Yeah, but we're talking about a movie that's already done 2 billion here. And, I mean, to put it into context, a movie that did 700 million is Deadpool. Yeah, indeed. Deadpool did that in its run at the box office. So did 2012. And so did The Da Vinci Code. These are films that people go, yeah, they were really good. Suicide Squad, $746 million at the worldwide box office.
That's no flop, is it? That's no flop. It's doubled its money and more so.
Exactly, mate. And this is, box office figures don't lie. And I tell you what does lie, and that's fan bases on the internet. Okay, they can be toxic and nasty, and you've only got to look at the box office figures for something like The Last Jedi to see it wasn't a flop. Solo was not a flop. These are films that they've done what they needed to do for us to continue getting the things that we want to see. And I tell you what, Infinity War, I cannot wait. And I think this is hard for me to say. I think I'm more excited for part 2, whatever it's called, than I am episode 9.
Well, after watching this today, it's really difficult as a massive Star Wars fan, and as I know you are, to just go, God, I love Marvel films. I do love Marvel films.
Well, on that note, there was a time I didn't, and we'll get to that in our main discussion. Mm-hmm. But there was probably about, and I've got to be honest, it was when you mentioned Age of Ultron, this is what made me think of it. It was around that time that I fell out of love with Marvel movies. And I really wasn't bothered about the future of what they were bringing. I was getting inundated with DC TV shows everywhere, and anyone was trying to make comic book movies a thing because of it. And I got a little bit comic booked out. But when I get things like Thor Ragnarok, Deadpool, Infinity War, Doctor Strange, and Black Panther, they start to make you go, hang on, there's a bigger, brighter world out there. And we were only literally scratching the surface before Age of Ultron.
Well, I think around the time of Age of Ultron, I was getting massively back to comics. I was reading a lot of Dark Horse, Star Wars. I was reading a lot of Marvel. I was buying big fat omnibuses that collected the entire run of a comic book, like, for example, the Captain America series, and the Deadpool by Joe Kelly. And then, of course, you know, the announcement came that Deadpool was coming, and I was extremely excited about that. So I started buying more and more comics. Daniel Wade, Deadpool, started reading that run. You know, I started buying some weird stuff like Howard the Duck and Oz as well, which is another Marvel series. I was reading absolutely anything and everything. And this is the time when probably, like you say, probably one of the worst Marvel movies that we've had come out, I suppose. But moving down to the TV world again, Flash movie is coming. TV world, what am I talking about? I mean, we've got the Flash TV series, which is coming very soon, but the Flash movie is coming in February of next year, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this too. And
Flash?
Yeah.
I thought this got put on hold.
Well, the announcement has come that February 17th next year is the date that I've come across.
Right. Okay.
And I don't know when they're going to be starting filming that, because if they're going to release that in February of next year, then they better get the finger out if they haven't started filming already.
Yeah, I
because production should have started. So, okay, well, you know, I think it's definitely after Aquaman, and I think they need to sort of try and get those characters done, except it doesn't look like a Batman is coming, which is a great shame.
Mate, I've got a feeling that we're going to see a complete overhaul of DC. Failing that, they're going to go with this, what was it, Worlds of DC that they used on the Comic-Con floor, I think it was. They had a new sort of banner art and sort of title for their mixed universe thing. Now, they're saying that wasn't the case, and it was just literally words used to sort of promote their Worlds of DC movies.
Right.
You know, but I think that would be a better way for DC to go right now, because they don't want to lose Wonder Woman with Gal Gadot, because as much as I didn't like that movie, again, like I say, the figures don't lie. People must have enjoyed it. They don't want to lose her because she's making the big bucks. Now,
and of course the second film is coming.
Yeah, the second film's coming, and what's the point of spending
next year?
Yeah, and they're onto something, I think, with Man of Steel, because I really enjoyed Man of Steel, and I think if they made a second one, it would be very good, and I'd enjoy it. But I think we'll see what Aquaman does, and I think that's where they're putting all their chips on the table with this one. And I think they're going to go all in with Aquaman, see how this goes. And I honestly think that by February next year, we're going to get something from DC that tells us their future. They're going to tell us their plans, and I don't think they're ready to do so until
they've got James Gunn on board.
Well, yeah, there may be, but I think we'll see with this and Shazam. That's the other one. I think we'll see Aquaman come out, and they'll really edge their bets on that movie and say, right, this is what we're going to do in the future. And if Aquaman fails, I've got a feeling Shazam will be the last thing we see for maybe a year or two. Yeah, they'll bring that out, and then they'll rejig their ideas and replan their future. And it's a hard time for them. They are trying to play catch up. They're not doing it right. They're missing a few steps. Doesn't mean that these films aren't enjoyable, because they are. I enjoy Batman vs Superman. There's a lot wrong with it. But there's a lot wrong with every superhero movie. We enjoy the Green Lantern, me and you. There is a hell of a lot wrong with that movie. But it's fun. And isn't that what these films are supposed to be? At their grassroots, they are just meant to be fun.
Well, if we're going to go down the comic book superhero route, which we are going to go down to, Brian K. Vaughan wrote something a few years back called Why the Last Man. Now, Yorick, the main character, is a scientist working in his lab. He's got a pet monkey, chimp, and he comes to the surface to find everything on the planet with the Y chromosome has gone. And the only people left on the planet are females. Now, some women want him alive for procreation, and some want him dead. So it's his survival. Now, the comic book is fantastic, and I absolutely loved it. And it's coming to FX, I believe. They're starting to get the scripts together and casting. Now, this will make a fantastic series, I think. Brian K. Vaughan, you might know him because he wrote a number of episodes of Lost. And he also has another comic book series out called Saga, which is crying out to be made into either a TV series or a film. And it would look a lot like Valerian, to be honest. So if you've not read Saga, I highly advise to pick that up. But to our main event of this evening, which is our favourite comic book heroes / superheroes. And the interesting thing is that the word superhero is actually copyrighted by DC. So we have to, give them credit that they got in there quickly and copyrighted that.
DC have something then, at least.
They do indeed. Yeah. They do indeed. Now,
I'll tell you what. If Sanjay over at Nerd Room hears this, he won't be very happy with me lambasting DC. But I do like DC. Honestly, they're just doing some stuff wrong.
Well, here we go. I've got a list of 25 films, superhero movies, like them or loathe them. I've struggled to put these into much of an order after number 10, because, the more you watch a film, the higher it tends to go, or you start to see faults in it, and that's where things get tricky. Now, I think we could mention a lot of films in this, and I know that we're going to have a slightly heated debate.
I'm ready.
So I'm going to start at number 25, and my 25th movie is the movie starring Wesley Snipes, Blade. The first rated R film. The first.
So how many are we doing?
Well, I'm doing 25. Because it's too hard to do 10. It's too hard to do 15 or 20. 25. But I'm going to count these down because these are 25 superhero films that I absolutely adore, and I know you do, and there is a couple that, we are questionable, and, Blade, fantastic soundtrack, great acting, superb, choreography, 2 and 3, not so good.
Oh, Blade Trinity, come on, that's brilliant.
I take that as a no. Kingsman at number 24. Now, wrong. Here we go. Now, you're saying I'm wrong because...
We've had this discussion off of air before we started the show.
Now, you
said to me, now I'm going to wave my furry unicorn pen at you, right? But you said to me, superhero movies. And then I said that I wanted to stick a certain movie into this list. And you said to me, no, because they're not a superhero. The Kingsmen are not superheroes.
Okay. Now... Kingsmen are essentially what? Tailors in disguise?
Batman is essentially... Tailors in disguise. I'm going to get... Yeah, okay.
He's... Bruce Wayne is what? Is a millionaire in disguise of Batman. Clark Kent, his persona is Superman. So Kingsman, are they superheroes?
No.
Now, it's based upon Mark Millar's comic book series, and Mark Millar sold Millarworld off, and that's, been bought by Netflix, but it was Millarworld was part of the Marvel universe. Is that a superhero? Well, let's just do / comic books, shall we?
No, because we're going to have a heated debate. I'm all pumped and ready to go now.
Okay, number 23 is Wonder Woman. Now, I love Wonder Woman. I saw it at the cinema. I came out, I was enthralled by it. I found it had some really tender moments, but I didn't like the villain at all. Now, I liked the villain right up to the point where you twigged who it was, and I thought it was all a bit pants. But up to that point and around that villain, I thought it was a fantastic film, beautifully directed, fantastically cast, but unfortunately, the villain was terrible. Looking forward to seeing how they're going to get, Peter Trevor in this film, which is
who was the villain again? Because this is exactly it. I can't even remember.
I don't even remember who it was now. You know what? It's forgettable. And
it was.
Yeah. Now I love at number 23, The Amazing Spider-Man starring Andrew Garfield.
22.
I really like 22. That's my 22nd film, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just writing it down, so I can rib you about it later.
Now, probably as a fan of the first Spider-Man movies, which you probably are, aren't you?
Nope.
Nope. What about The Amazing Spider-Man starring Andrew Garfield?
Heck yes.
It's a fantastic movie, isn't it?
Yeah. I was very disappointed that we didn't get
a third.
This world expand that we were kind of semi-promised, weren't we? Because we were going to get Sinister Six, and they settled that up with Dane DeHaan, who I think is a fantastic actor. He's maybe not as good as he first made us think he was going to be with things like Chronicle, but however, let's go on my list. Chronicle, yeah, I forgot about that one. How much we saw him in that, and I thought this guy's going to be fantastic. He's not as good as I thought he was going to be. He hasn't grown to being the actor that I was hoping, but I thought he played a good Green Goblin. And I know people have a problem with this movie, but I wanted to see something fresh. You know, Spider-Man is the face of Marvel. He is on the front cover of every Marvel comic book, up in that little top left corner where they have the price and the issue number. He is Marvel. That is who Spider-Man is. And you're dealing with a property that is so important to that brand. And we had the Tobey Maguire movies that got increasingly worse. Avi Arad, I think, should just be kept away from anything to do with these films, because you hear it from, my mind has gone blank, who directed them? The originals. Mm-hmm. There was all this, there was, involvement from the studio that made him change things. He wasn't happy with the film that he created. It's not the film that he wanted to do. And you can see that. You can clearly see that. There was a loss of love as these films continued. I think the studio involvement to build on something and make it something different is so noticeable. And when we got The Amazing Spider-Man, I was so pleasantly surprised. I thought, this is weird, Andrew Garfield, and the guy...
Emma Stone was fantastic as his
the guy nailed it.
Rhys Ifans was great. Dennis Leary,
and
brilliant.
They took
Martin Sheen, Sally Field.
Chance of doing something different as well, using that bad guy.
Mark Webb directed that brilliantly, I thought. Really well. And he did the second one, but Jamie Foxx I thought was great in the second one. There was Felicity Jones was also in the second one too.
She was indeed.
But that doesn't make my list. But Iron Man at number 21 does. Now, this really set off this Marvel universe and our first taste of Mr. Junior. And we get a fantastic villain. And though with first time we really get the closing credits scenes, and that really did spark off the excitement, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. Didn't it just, mate? Didn't it just?
Number 20 for me is a DC movie, directed by Tim Burton, and it's Batman. And one of the reasons why I love this film so much is because Prince did the soundtrack. Obviously, we do get Mr. Jack Nicholson as the Joker. I do believe that he's the second best Joker we've had. I do think Leno did a great job, but for me... Leo, sorry.
Jay Leno would have been
Jay Leno would have been brilliant, wouldn't he? Yeah. Brilliant. I don't think it would have fit into the Joker suit quite. Thor Ragnarok is my number 19. It's just a wonderful, wonderful film. And it has multiple viewings written all over it, doesn't it? There's fantastic comedy. And it's a new taste. It's a new taste on Thor as well, from being the quite moody.
I'd taste Thor. I said I'd taste Thor.
I'm sure you would like to lick
Chris
those muscles.
Yeah, he could get anything he wanted, that man.
Number 18 on my list is Spider-Man Homecoming.
Really?
Yes.
And my list backwards.
Yes, well, there we go. Well, that's my number 18 movie. Number 17 is Richard Donner's Superman, the classic movie. And we see, Zod and his cronies and really Christopher Reeve at his finest. I do find it very sad watching that film though, knowing what a great man he was and how sad his health declined after the accident was really quite difficult. Number 16 for me is Ant-Man, which came out of the blue. I didn't expect them ever to make an Ant-Man film, but you know, it's Marvel we're talking about, so but yeah, amazing cast.
One of my favourite things.
Humor. And,
one of my favourite things about it was the marketing for it, and I was working in the cinema at the time, and the poster for Ant-Man was one of the big quad posters with the word Ant-Man across it, and it was white with just this tiny black dot in the middle of the poster, and I thought, that is perfect, and so many people
I remember that.
were looking at that poster. I used to have it upstairs, but so many people were looking at that poster because of how much of an effect it had. It worked. It was just these big, bold, red words, Ant-Man, on this white background. And everyone was going over and looking at it like, what's up with that? And then you could just see this tiny little Ant-Man, tiny, smack bang in the middle of the page. Yeah, it is genius marketing, that, yeah. And that's how sure they are of their brand, Marvel, that they can get away with doing things like that. They don't have to stick their star in the middle of a poster.
Well, I think this next one is a little bit, it's got a bit of controversy behind it because my number 15 is Civil War, Captain America's Civil War. I know a lot of people love this film, but if you see what comes before it, you probably realise why it's gone down my list a little bit. Number 14 is The Winter Soldier. Again, most people's top 3 superhero films, but ahead of it is Black Panther at number 13, Doctor Strange at number 12, Guardians of the Galaxy at number 11, and Kick-Ass at number 10. Now, I absolutely love Kick-Ass. When did you last see that?
Kick-Ass, probably about 4 weeks ago, if that.
Did you really?
Yeah, I watch it. It's one of my go-tos, Kick-Ass, mate. It's a great film, but it's also so easy to watch. It's one of those that I find I can just stick on. There's a couple of scenes in it, especially with Big Daddy, what happens in that room, with the
what
fire.
I love about it is it's just, you know, what if a normal everyday guy decided to get on a costume and fight crime, and you know, it's not necessarily the most realistic portrayal of an urban vigilante. I mean, after all, how many 11-year-old girls do you know that can backflip off a wall and kick a 300-pound mobster against a room?
More than
I,
35-year-old men.
With her katana. But, you know, it's just really great. It's bloody, it's vulgar, sometimes it's extremely slapstick. You know, a look at what superhero life is like. And yet it contains just enough sort of character drama and tragedy to keep me invested. And I've seen that so many times. You know, you've got Big Daddy, as you say, you've got Hit Girl, and all the rest. It's really faithful to the adaptation by Mark Miller and John Romita Jr.'s original comic book, which, again, it almost looks like it's been taken straight off the pages, which is what I loved about it in the first place.
And Mark Strong.
And I was going to say, it has Mark Strong in it.
Which, if anyone listens to this, knows that I have no problem with anything with Mark Strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Number 9 on my list, I think, if I've got these right, is going to be Hellboy. Yes.
That's kind of left field for you.
Yeah, I think most of mine are quite left field with my top movies here. I'm going to probably get my numbering system wrong here because I've written something else in here, but I'm going to go, because I've got a couple here that I'm toying with.
Drop some. You can't get 25 and have more.
Am I going to go? I've got 3 films here. I've got Avengers, The Dark Knight Rises, and Infinity War. I've got to choose one of those. I'm going to go with Infinity War at my number 8. Tough, isn't it? Batman vs Superman is my number 7. I adore this film, man. The ultimate cut. I absolutely love it, mate. I'm a Batman fan. I love the fact that it included Man of Steel.
No, I'm not having that. Like, it's good. It's probably be in my top 10. But
No, I'm not saying I'm right here. I'm just giving my list here. Moving swiftly on, I'm putting Man of Steel ahead of Batman vs Superman because I'm a big Zack Snyder fan as well. So those two are in there, which is why Watchmen is my next film, number 5.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4 on my list would be Batman Begins. Number 3 is another Christopher Nolan film, The Dark Knight. Now, can you guess what my top 2 superhero films would be? I take that as a no. I'm going Deadpool number 2 and Dredd at number 1. That is not the Sylvester Stallone film.
I am the law. Dread. Cool.
So I hope that's upset a few people, or
It's
you
upset
like
me.
my little list. Yeah, probably yes, good. So where do you draw your lines here? Let's have a listen to your top.
Well, I haven't written a list because you threw this on me just as we started. So
You know.
I've written yours down, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going
prepare
to.
a week for this.
Yeah, I don't. You know, I had other things. I had news about time splitters to read out, but we just skipped over it. Went superheroes. It's all cool.
Time splitters at the end. You know that. We need to
We
chat
can
to
we'll do that on the next one. This
Okay,
is very superhero centric. This one. Comic books.
I went Blade in there. What did you think of those? Any of those on your list?
I'm gonna try and freeball this as we go. Right, I'm gonna do my list, and I'm gonna start at number 1. I'm gonna do number 1 upwards, right?
Okay,
because I don't feel like I can do backwards and not work this out. But number 1, without a shadow of a doubt, in my world, is Infinity War.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that because it's recent, or is this
I said
knocked
this to
everything
you
else out the
when
park?
I watched it, and then you can even listen back to one of the older episodes. When I watched this at the cinema, and there's a few reasons for this, and it's not just because of the quality of the movie. When I watched this at the cinema, I was flabbergasted. I have not seen a movie that I've enjoyed this much in a long time. And
where's the flaws in this film? Tell me where the flaws are.
It does include Star Wars, that. Now, there is a difference here. Now, this is hard to explain for me. I watched Star Wars, The Force Awakens, and I watched The Last Jedi with the expectations of a die-hard Star Wars fan. I went in there knowing that I was going to enjoy whatever I saw to some capacity, and I was going to pull it apart. When I went to see Infinity War, I go in there quite negative a lot of the time. Not negative, but less open-minded as a movie fan, because I, over the years, have been let down time and time again by superhero movies and comic book movies. To be honest, I was saying before, there was a time when Age of Ultron came out that I fell out of love with them. I wasn't bothered anymore. I was working at the cinema. That probably didn't help because I was inundated with doing screen checks and things which would ruin movies for people. We had a lot of staff that would refuse to go in and do screen checks during the opening week of a movie because we wasn't allowed to get our tickets to go see it ourselves unless we paid to go somewhere else. And obviously we're all tight and want it for free. So, screen checks and working in cinema kind of ruined superhero movies to a degree. The constant influx of superhero movies being of a substandard quality kind of ruined them. And by that I mean things like, for me, again, these are personal lists, but I didn't really enjoy The Winter Soldier because it was a spy film. And I understand that people liked it for that reason, but they're the parts of the superhero universe that don't interest me as much.
Well, that's why it made my number 14 on my list, because of that. It was more James Bond and less
and I get
superhero.
that. Yeah, I get it, man. I totally get it, and that's why this is our list. And for me, people enjoy that part of it. For me, I love, and this is going to become apparent soon with the rest of my list, I love the cosmic and I love the space side of all the superhero stuff. The Guardians of the Galaxy, your Thor, your Thors and your Doctor Stranges, all they're the bits that really I enjoy. And even watching Infinity War, the flaws in this film lie for me in the parts where Captain America, Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow and that are on the screen. Now, don't get me wrong, there is the scene in here is one of the best uses of a movie score for me, and that is the fight with Scarlet Witch and Vision when they're fighting. Is it the Horsemen, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. In where are they? Germany, I think it is, or somewhere. And it's all kicking off.
Yeah.
And she throws the spear at Scarlet Witch, and then you see it get caught in the shadows. And that score, the Avengers music with Captain America, that diddlin, diddlin, dun, and it rises in.
That was Scotland.
Yeah, Scotland, thank you. It is perfect the way that music is introduced. And it gave me goosebumps, and it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. However, these are the characters that I like the least. And when I was watching Infinity War, the times where Captain America and Scarlet Witch and Black Widow were on the screen, they were the times, and even Vision, they were the times that I was less interested. Now, I'm not a big Iron Man fan, and I was less interested when he was on screen, but luckily, he had all the other ensemble cast that I enjoy about that movie on screen with him at that time, for the majority of the movie. So yeah, that's why Infinity War really hit home for me, is it reinvigorated my love and my passion for these things. I used to do a comic book movie podcast. I could not do that last year or the year before because there was no love there anymore. There was no interest in it. There's a couple of films come out around that time that I really have enjoyed and I love, and they're in the top movies of all time for me. But Infinity War, no matter when I've seen it or what I've seen of it, it is, for me, an almost flawless movie.
Can we have your number 2 then, please?
Oh, yeah, I could go on all night about Infinity War. Number 2 is, and I'm going to have to put this in here, is Dark Knight. Mm-hmm. Okay, because it is the Dark Knight. There is, I don't need to go into this. It's got one of the greatest performances of all time, character performances of all time with Heath Ledger's Joker. Nobody else is ever going to come close to doing that sort of performance. I unfortunately find his posthumous Oscar slightly tainted, because I know full well he wouldn't have got it if he was still alive. That doesn't mean he didn't deserve it, because he did deserve
that. Absolutely.
But he wouldn't have got it if he was still alive, and that's the sham of the Academy.
I think what makes this film as well so incredible is Christopher Nolan's direction.
Oh, it's beautiful, mate. Absolutely beautiful.
What's your number 3?
It's going to have to be Guardians.
Wonderful.
I haven't. Yeah, I come out of that film beaming. I saw it, and I'm going to, smug mode here, but I saw that 3 days before anyone else in the UK. We got our hands on a copy where I worked at the time, and we was allowed to test it. And I did. I sat there in a big 2-seater comfy seat at 3 a.m. after a long 12-hour shift, and I watched that movie from start to finish, and I was buzzing when I come out of it.
Do you not think as well that if it didn't say at the end of that film, the Guardians will be back, that it was such a great standalone? It just...
Yeah, and
it had everything. It had everything A New Hope has about it. It has a great start, middle, and an end, and it really just has such a great feel to it. And James Gunn wrote such a brilliant
movie,
and well deserved, I think, is your number 3. What's your number 4 movie, mate?
Ragnarok.
Okay.
because
yeah.
I want to touch his arms and stroke his hair.
I think it has the same elements as what Guardians has, doesn't it?
This is my point, and this is what my list is going to be, unfortunately. You'll notice that there's a theme that runs through it, the cosmic side of it. Now, like I said, with Guardians, that was around the time of all the other Marvel films that I wasn't bothered about, but because it was very standalone, I enjoyed it for that reason alone. Now, with Ragnarok, it was the same sort of thing. Now, Thor 1 and 2, I really enjoyed number 1, quite enjoyed number 2, but in hindsight, I've watched it again, it's not actually that great. A lot of missed opportunities, especially with the character. Marvel owned it with Ragnarok. They suddenly realised, why are we wasting Hemsworth in this capacity? We had emo Thor in Dark World, and they suddenly realised, hang on, this guy's hilarious. He's probably one of the funniest people we've got in the cast, this ensemble of the Avengers, and they did it right. And Taika Waititi, knocked that film out of the park for me, man. That is
It's just a
absolutely
wonderful film.
fantastic.
It's a wonderful film.
Yeah,
What's your
and
number 5?
Well, 5 would be the Korg standalone movie if they actually ever get around to making it, because I've watched that. But number 5 for me is going to be Watchmen. Mm-hmm. Okay, so mine and yours actually sit there in the same space there. I saw that at the cinema, and Dr. Manhattan's big 4-foot blue wang, something I will never get out of my mind.
Do you know what the funny thing is? I remember when I read the comic book, I didn't really understand it. I didn't really get it. And then when the film came out and I watched it, it just made the comic book seem magical, like some kind of Bible. And one thing I didn't remember was the scene, in, is it Night Owl's? Ship. It's not Night Owl, is it? Yeah, in his ship, yeah. I don't remember that in the comic book.
I don't think that was. But then we didn't have giant flying squids on the film, did we?
No, we didn't
outer
either.
Space. But that's a prime example of someone actually doing something better than the source material.
But can I just say, that's the only time that I'm ever going to get that excited at watching a comic book film.
It's a good scene.
It's a great scene.
Credit where credit's due. I mean, the whole.
What's your sexy number 6 then?
My number 6. I'm only going to do 10 here, mate, because I think it's going to go on far too long for me to do in this. And there is a lot of. I've got to be honest. I'm not as invested. It's Kingsman.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Okay, and I am going to go for Kingsman at number 6 because I absolutely.
Is it because it's got Mark Strong in it?
Do you know what? It has, hasn't it? I'm going to swap Infinity War for Kingsman. Kingsman goes to number 1 because it's got Mark Strong in it. Yeah. No, Kingsman. It's one of those. It's another go-to, like Kick-Ass that we were talking about. Funny enough, they're both Mark Millar, and I think it's probably because of his comedy.
Yes.
It just works. He can take a serious, and it's almost akin to Only Fools and Horses. Now, I know that sounds stupid, right? But Only Fools and Horses is a show that you will laugh, and then suddenly something can happen that will have you in tears.
Or you could be someone who's never seen it.
Seen
Only Fools and Horses.
You've never seen it? No. Right, okay. Regardless,
can I say that you're
obviously not British. He will apply for his British citizenship within the next few months. To do that, you have to sit and watch the whole box set.
Now, I don't think I've ever watched a full episode of it, and I'm probably completely alone, except for our Canadian, Australian, and American listeners, probably.
Now, I'm
and
going
those
to
in the
pose
Maldives.
this question to him, because I guarantee
What's your number 7, please?
No, we're not getting over this.
Here we are. Right? This is not TV shows.
No, I'm trying to make a
supposed
comparison.
To feature Cockneys or people from Peckham.
Right, I'm really seriously contemplating.
I was watching BBC Two when this was on, and watching the young ones and an alternative comedy, and not Only Fools and Horses.
Oh, okay. You probably tell me next you've never had a roast dinner or toad in the arm.
I'm vegetarian.
Oh, bloody hell. Have you ever got in a black cab? Have you ever had a 99 at the seaside? I mean, have you ever been to the seaside, played on a penny arcade? Have you done anything British? Have you, Oh, God, man.
I'm totally British. It doesn't mean that I have to, that I've watched.
It's part of your It's like if you go to the airport and they ask you questions, they will turn around to you and go, Gary. And unless you reply with the word Gary, they just kick you out. You're not allowed in England. All right. Okay. It's how it works. And you're missing out on some jokes, man. Anyway, right, I'm really upset here. So we're done Watchmen Kingsman. I'm going to have to go for number 7.
Maybe it was Nicholas, what's-his-face's theme tune that he sang that I didn't like.
He didn't sing it. I'm not even talking to you about that now.
I thought he did.
No, you've upset me.
Nicholas Lyndhurst, wasn't it?
You've upset me. I don't know. Number 7 is going to be Deadpool. Okay. This is going to descend into chaos. I thought we were going to argue over comic
Good
books.
choice. Good choice. That's a good choice.
Hang on. Am I allowed the ones that I wanted earlier? That you said I couldn't have?
You can put them in if you like.
Right, okay then,
Just keep going. Because
Valerian.
Oh, wonderful, right.
Okay.
Now, he is a superhero. He doesn't have superpowers, nor do Kingsman, but It's Slash. He's a superhero.
He is, and Cara Delevingne's in the movie as well, and she's allowed to be in anything. So Valerian, okay, because it is... And
she's in it with her 2 eyebrows.
We've all got 2 eyebrows. Well, I haven't sometimes. I have to shave it.
We have eyebrows. She has 2 eyebrows.
Valerian, I've got to thank you for that, because you actually put me onto that movie. And I'd had it in my watch list for ages. And how long have we been doing this? 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I've watched it about 5 times now. So, yeah, fantastic movie. So number 8 is Valerian. Number 9 is Snowpiercer.
Right. Now explain yourself.
Well, I'm going to use a loophole here that Corey would use. Captain America's in it.
Yeah, that doesn't count as a superhero film. I know this is a comic book adaptation, but I don't know if that really... I don't think that counts.
Why not?
I'm afraid to say.
He's a hero, and he does some super stuff in the process of getting to the front of that train.
I don't think it counts.
Next you're going to tell me Tintin doesn't count, aren't you?
He's comic book.
I think you're racist towards the French, that's what it is. You're not going to let me have Smurfs.
Valerian would be in my list
if
I thought he was a superhero. I mean, I think...
You just said Valerian is a superhero.
Oh, well, because I like the film.
Okay, right. I'm going to take 8 and 9 out of Valerian and Snowpiercer.
Look, I had a bit of a... Look,
how about
I had 3 films... That's the same thing. Is V a superhero?
It's an ordinary man that dresses up. It's exactly...
Okay, I'll allow V in there. I'll allow V for Vendetta. I will allow that.
He's an ordinary guy that dresses up in army gear and...
That's fine, I allow that, but Snowpiercer isn't.
Right, okay, I'll drop Snowpiercer. Number 9, Snowpiercer, out. Number 8 is Valerian.
Take your floor out.
Number 9. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to have Doctor Strange.
Wonderful. Mr. Cumberbatch couldn't have taken a better acting role, could he? Really?
No, I mean, this guy's already in the big time at the moment.
Apparently he was a fan of the comic books, actually.
I can see it, mate, and the guy nails it. He nails the whole character. He's one of those that when you first said it, I'm like, why are you putting him in there for? And then you see him in the outfit and you're like, that's why you're putting him in it. You know, it's one of those like, yes, it is perfect.
It's him.
You know, there's films, isn't there, when someone gets cast and you go, yeah, that's the person. Or, you know, that's the wrong choice. And he is the only one I see now. I can't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see anyone else in that role. Now, honestly, I think with Captain America, you probably could put someone else in there now.
Well, you could, but, you know, if looking at the Ed Brubaker run of Captain America, you see Chris Evans a lot. Now, I don't know if it's because we've got Chris Evans as Captain America, and now I'm looking at the guy thinking, well, that's just his portrayal of Chris Evans. But I think what they've done is such an incredible job of getting these characters and the actors bang on, except for Spider-Man. And that's the only problem, isn't it? Is they've never quite got Spider-Man right, and I'm really hoping they've got...
Well, you don't like Tom Holland?
I think Tom Holland is the saviour.
You do? Good,
I
okay.
do, yeah, I do.
Yeah, because that's what I was saying about Garfield earlier. I think the guy's great. I hated Tobey Maguire in the role. I really hated Tobey Maguire in the role. It was far too whiny, far too self-involved.
He played a very good Peter Parker. That's all I'm saying. But you kind of want your Spider-Man to be Spider-Man, don't you? More athletic.
I think Garfield did that great thing. He did there's 2 different characters there, isn't there? When he's Peter Parker, he's very self-aware, very cautious, very anxious with the world. And, you know, his biggest fear is losing Aunt May. It's his, you know, the thing that he holds much dear to him. I would too if she looked like Marissa Tomei.
Sally Field wasn't bad, let's face it.
But when he turns into Spider-Man and he dons the suit and the mask, he's a cocky little so-and-so. And Garfield did that very well. You know, there's that scene, isn't there, with the guy with the knife.
Yeah.
And he goes from this, you know, he's kind of doing the twitching and he puts the suit on and he goes and kicks that guy's butt and he's having a really good time doing it, you know, and he comes out of his shell and he becomes this, he suddenly realizes his true potential. And it's something that, Tom Holland has got. I'm yet to see a fault in his performance, which is why actually at number 10 is going to be Homecoming for me.
Wonderful.
Because it was the saviour of the face of Marvel for me. And it was also the start of something very interesting. And that was the blending of Spider-Man to Marvel from Sony. And I wish I had the recordings of my old podcast, because I called the Spider-Man thing back in, I think it was about 2015 or 2016. I was talking to my good friend Charlie on there, and I said that they will be next. We will get Spider-Man in the MCU, and it happened. I hope the other things that I've called are going to happen as well, because we've just had the Fox, hopefully the acquisition go through, so we may do that. But yes, yeah, so number 10 is my Homecoming.
Well,
there is another honourable mention that I'd like to throw into this list.
Go on.
Mystery Men.
Okay, it's a very good movie, which it's similar to Kick-Ass in that same way, isn't it? That it's, you know, these are sort of average everyday Joes that don costumes.
It's silly good fun, mate.
It's silly good fun.
Yeah, and I really enjoy it. It's one of those, if you put it on now, I know I'm going to have a good hour and a half.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Now, we didn't have one X-Men movie in our list, and that's probably because we both don't really like X-Men. I don't think yet they have done the ultimate X-Men, but I'm more looking forward to seeing what happens with Fantastic Four. And you know, if
there's one X-Men film I like, and that's First Class.
First Class is First Class.
It is a very good film, but again, Fox screwed the pooch by making the second movie and trying to connect it all with the rest of their other films. They should have, at that point, realised they were onto something now. McAvoy and Fassbender as Magneto and Professor X.
But it got very confusing for me when Logan pops up.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I love,
where does this fit in? How does that fit in?
And that's the thing. I love the joke in Deadpool when he gets when Colossus is taken in to see Professor X. He's going, oh, which one, McAvoy or Stewart? I get so confused with these timelines.
Well, and they are very confusing.
Yeah, they're even calling jokes on it themselves because it doesn't make sense. I mean, you had it with the timeline of First Class, and then the last one was set in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that doesn't even match up.
It just throws it all about.
Yeah.
It's the same with the Wolverine films as well.
Yeah.
They're just not good enough, are they? They're just not good enough.
No. And that's it. They're okay, but they're not good enough. And that's what the problem lies. When you're dealing with a property such as the X-Men, you should be doing something better than they are. And that's what the problem lies there.
So who is your ultimate superhero character? Comic book.
My wife. She's my biggest superhero.
You are such a creep.
She's not even in the room at the moment.
I mean, I would say my girlfriend's extraordinary. She is. She's an extraordinary woman. And she does possess a lot of superhero traits.
You keep that between you and yourself, alright?
But we do. So who, out of all of your list of your top 10 there, who are you going to go for as your ultimate superhero out of all those? I mean, bear in mind there's a few characters in Watchmen. And then Guardians. And Infinity War has them all.
Are we doing the characters from the movies?
So who is your absolute favourite out of that list in your top 10? Which character would you, if they said we're going to make, 5 films about them, if they haven't already?
Yeah.
Let's be fair, in terms of characters, I mean, you've got three Batman films, you've got 3 Thor films, you've got 2 Kingsman movies, you've got 1 Doctor Strange.
Can I have Thanos?
You've been in Well, he's been in most of them, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, since about 2012, I think.
So who is your ultimate superhero?
As it stands at the moment, it's Thor, which is surprising because when did we first see Thor? It was in the first Thor movie, wasn't it? And I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it was one of those characters I was like, yeah, I'll see more of him when we see more of him. Then I saw Dark World.
Was it 2011 first Thor movie?
I think it was, mate, yeah. You're going back some now. Then I saw Thor: The Dark World, and I was like, I'm really enjoying this character, and I enjoyed him, especially when he was in the more modern world with, on Earth. I enjoyed that. I like the back and forth.
Yeah.
The differences of cultures and everything. And then when I saw Ragnarok, that was it for me. It cemented that love for Hemsworth as Thor. Now, he's not my favourite character.
They're three very different films, aren't they?
They are. And I've enjoyed aspects of him all through the Avengers movies and the Thor movies. But this was the one that suddenly made me realise, I'm down for more of this. And when I see him in character, have you seen the videos, the small comedy videos with his flatmate?
Yeah. They're fantastic.
Yeah, they're brilliant. And
Darren, is it? Daryl?
Yeah, I think Daryl, yeah. And they're absolutely cracking, mate. And I think Hemsworth now's the character. He isn't my favourite character. That's the thing. He is in the Marvel world and the film world, and that's what I'm enjoying about that at the moment. And if you said to me there was, Ragnarok 2 or whatever they're going to call it coming out, I'm there straight away, which I couldn't say for some of the others, to be honest with you. If Deadpool 2, for instance, I actually haven't seen it yet. I still have not seen Deadpool 2. And no doubt I'll enjoy it, but for me, I find a lot of superhero movies, like sequels, don't seem to live up to the first one. So, for instance, Guardians 2, I really enjoyed Guardians 2, but it's not a patch on the first one.
We haven't seen enough of Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool yet to really, But he was a bit late to the party for me. I mean, when I started to read Deadpool, he'd been out already sort of 10, 15 years, I suppose. So you're going Thor.
Yeah,
I'm going DC. Well, mine's going to be Batman, mate. I think he makes up for the fact that he doesn't have superpowers by having super tech. And it's the Christopher Nolan trilogy that stand out alone. As much as, I like the Burton two movies, with Dark Knight.
Find them on my list, mate.
Exactly. And Dark Knight is just a phenomenal film. But it all starts with Begins, and Begins is a great film. I mean, Rises again. We get to see Bane, and we get to see Catwoman. And so it has a great finale, and I loved it. Loved them.
Yeah. Fair enough.
One movie that didn't make either of our lists was Green Lantern. Now, we both really like Green Lantern.
Well, yeah, this is the thing, though, isn't it? We're making a list of our favourite comic book movies.
It stars Mark Strong.
It does star Mark Strong, that's Sinestro. But you're making a list of your favourite comic book movies. 25 spaces for yourself isn't even enough, because there's so many of them out there.
Oh, there's far
just because some of these things on here are
a lot out.
Yeah, I mean, just some mentions for me. Just because I didn't put Blade in there and Superman, Man of Steel, and I didn't put Ant-Man in there, and I didn't put Civil War in there, and I didn't put Doctor Strange in there, or did I? But anyway, I mean, just because I didn't put those movies in my list of top 10 does not mean I do not like them. I absolutely loved Batman vs Superman when I went to the cinema to watch it. I adore Man of Steel because I don't like Superman as a character. I think he's overhyped and he's overpowered. It's ridiculous having him in a movie. I think that's part of my problem with having things like Captain America and Black Widow in the Avengers. Mm-hmm. It's the whole Hawkeye thing. There's no point. If Thanos walked over and punched one of them, they're dead. And that's why I like the more cosmic side of it. Doctor Strange can't go toe to toe with Thanos with his fists, but he's got other skills that he can use there, which we saw, and it was perfectly executed. Now, That's what I'm saying. It doesn't mean I don't like these movies. And when it comes to Green Lantern, I enjoy that movie in the same way I enjoy Mystery Men. I'm in for a fun hour and a half, 2 hours.
It gives you that. It does give you that. It does give you that. I think what for me, Batman 66 TV show with Adam West, Burt Ward, really, infused my love of Batman when the Christopher Nolan trilogy came along. It was worlds apart from the campy Batman. And I like my superhero films to be a little bit dark and a little bit odd. I can't pick Dredd because he's only had one good film. Has been my ultimate, but,
what about the, one with Carl Urban in it?
That's what we're talking about. Thank you very much. Oh, God. So, you had some news that you wanted to share too. Timeline stuff.
Time Splitters.
Time Splitters.
We're off of the superhero thing now because you can't choose what superhero is and what superhero isn't. I'm really pushing my luck tonight, aren't I? I'm being cheeky. Sorry, mate. Now, I don't know if you saw this, but Time Splitters. Do you remember Time Splitters at all?
I do.
Yes. Well, Time Splitters has just been, the company that made Time Splitters has just been bought up, and it looks like we are going to be getting a new one very soon.
Wonderful.
Now, I used to play Time Splitters. I used to house share with a bunch of hippies back in the day, and we had many a games console in there, and Time Splitters used to be one of our go-tos. Time Splitters 2 on the GameCube we used to play. Now, Free Radical Design became Crytek UK, and then Deep Silver Dam Buster Studios, Crytek has held on to the Time Splitters license, right? So, this has been for years, this is going on and on and on and on. But now Koch Media, who owns Deep Silver Dam Buster, has the rights to make new Time Splitters and also re-release old ones. But it sounds like there's something new in the works.
So in terms of old ones, you're talking about the Time Splitters 2 and Future Perfect, that stuff?
Yes. Now, GameCube games are now becoming backwards compatible with your Switch. So, this is from Koch Media boss Clemens Kundratitz, I want to try and say, but we are hugely excited to have acquired Time Splitters. The original game gave fans a massive content offer and provided a pure and genuinely fun arcade shooter experience. We have many fans from the Time Splitters series among our own staff who are passionate about creating a product that will thrill today's gaming audience. So, the way he's speaking there, they haven't actually confirmed anything, right? But the way they're talking now is a given, isn't it? There's obviously, they're not turning around and going, oh yeah, we make Time Splitters, we have the license for it, but we're going to be making the new IP that's similar or something akin to that. He's going full in there, mentioning Time Splitters. They've got fans of it that work in the studio. And there was initial plans for Time Splitters 4 at Free Radical. But when they fell into administrations, it all just got put to the wayside. So it's confusing though, because as far as I remember, THQ Nordic owned the rights to the franchise and they bought it from Crytek. Yeah. So who actually now owns it? Koch Media.
Right. And what have they bought out?
They have bought out Crytek, so
they bought them out, right? Got you.
So, okay. But they bought out Crytek. So I think when who did you just say? Sorry,
Nordic.
Yeah, Nordic. I think they just
Nordic,
bought. I think they just bought the whole of Crytek there.
I remember Future Perfect on the Xbox. I know that was such a great game. Time Splitters 2, I know was on the Xbox, but not the first one, Time Splitters, which I think was PS2 only, I think, wasn't it?
Time Splitters, the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I mean, they're really good first-person shoot-em-ups, aren't they? I mean...
Oh, mate, what I'm hoping we get from this as well is split-screen co-op.
Yeah.
Or something at least akin to that, some old-school sort of style way of playing it, because this, like I say, this game, you used to be able to build your own levels on it as well, your own arenas. And the amount of hours we spent putting into designing all of these different, maps that we could play against each other with.
Yes.
I want more of that. I want more of this crazy, zany time splitters fun from days gone by.
What I remember about the look of the films is it was very stylish, very stylized, and it had sort of almost comic book like qualities to it.
Yeah.
I mean, you had
cell shaded almost. It felt, didn't it?
You had sort of recognisable characters from pop culture stereotypes. You had sort of like the English explorer, a suave secret agent. You had all types of.
There was a monkey
antagonists
as well,
that were in it. Was there a monkey?
Sure, there was a monkey in one of them.
I mean, it was just a really cracking game. So that's great news to hear that this is on the up. And
I'm over the moon, mate. Yeah, I just think a little bit of retro news there, kind of, because we're getting a game that's nearly 20 years old now. And I'm hoping, I'd hope to see Time Splitters 2 re-released somehow, but also I want more of this absolutely manic, shooters are all the thing now. What I don't want them to do
and
is
open world games too, which is, I hope it's a little bit more open world.
I think the closest thing we get to feel of these is Borderlands. They have this certain zany quality about them, whereas Borderlands, as much as I love them, has always felt slightly empty. Because there's not enough going on in the maps between locations. It's something that I feel that it sort of hinders its chance of becoming something a lot bigger than it is. But Time Splitters is just a good old, if they do this right, it'll be a good old bit of retro fun. It'll be a real arcade shooter, and we don't get enough of them nowadays. It's all far too much. Invest 17 hours of your 24-hour day playing this game to become adequate.
Yes.
Not even good, but adequate to be able. I put Fortnite on, and I just aim to strive to get to my number 6 spot that I can get to every 2 or 3 weeks, and then I get shot and then I die, and then I turn it off because I get annoyed. And I'm never going to get to number 1, and I appreciate that and I accept it. But I can in Time Splitters.
We've been talking about Marvel, and the Marvel Spider-Man game looks absolutely phenomenal. But now, talking about maps, I mean, that New York map, mate, I've been looking at some of the trailers, I'm looking at some of the gameplay. It's ridiculous, and it's open world. It looks like you're going to have a great story mode, obviously. But if you just want to fly about the city, spinning webs and swinging around, you're going to have such great fun with this.
Yeah.
Game. It's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be a huge, huge hit.
Have you seen how fluid it is when he's going through buildings, like the scripted moments? So when you're swinging through the city,
oh yes,
there's a bit with two buildings very close to each other, and he can just about fit through. And instead of in the old, you'd have had the box, the invisible box, where you'd have hit a bit of the wall and you would have bounced off. He actually bends his body and twists through the hole, and it's so fluid. And they're the clever moments in this game that there is, by the looks of it, when you're swinging through that city, there's no hindrance to your movement. And that's what Spider-Man needs to be. It needs to be fluid. It needs to swing through that city and jump on here and grab this. And because otherwise the gameplay mechanic falls apart.
It looks very intuitive, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's what you need from it. And what I've seen so far, it's nailing it. And it's really looking interesting, this game.
Anything else you've seen this week that's caught your eye? I mean, certainly I've been looking at quite a lot of Switch games that are coming out. There's games like Diablo 3. I know my son's looking forward to seeing that. There's a lot of stuff game-wise. I mean, in terms of retro games, I think Time Splitters is the one to sort of look out for when that hits our consoles.
Yeah, very much, mate.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much, I suppose, wraps that up for this week's episode, don't you think?
It does indeed. If you've got any comments or suggestions towards Adam's lack of ever watching Only Fools and Horses, and you want to sort of stage an intervention, or we apply for him to be deported to somewhere, then please get in touch.
You can't let it go.
I'm not going to let it go, mate. No, you're right.
This has been a Retro Inc. podcast production. Go to our website, retroincpodcast.co.uk, or you can join us on Twitter, Instagram, the Retro Inc. Facebook page, and of course the Retro Inc. YouTube channel. Alternatively, you can find us and many other podcasts at the StarWarsCommonwealth.com. Podcast such as ours, Talk Star Wars, Tumbling Saber, Nerd Room, Generation X-Wing, Rogue Squadron, San Diego Sabres Radio Podcast, the Skyhoppers Podcast, Tatooine Sun Podcast, and Less Than 12 Parsecs. And that, of course, wraps us up for this week. Thanks very much for listening. Myself, Adam, and my co-host and wonderful shaved head buddy,
Andy. Thank you very much, guys. Cheers.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.